A legendary relationship for a legendary cause. Over 2 decades now, WMAL has been supporting the Fisher House. The audience here on WMAL supporting the Fisher House and raising over $8.3 million for members of the military and their families. We're going to get into the details today, tell you a little bit more about all of the good work you have done through the years and the Fisher House has done for our veterans and their family members. God bless you all for that. And the number today for this Fisher House Radiothon, it just started today. So far, WMAL listeners have contributed $187,560. That goes such a long way. We'll be updating you throughout the program today as your support comes in. 888-294-8560. That's 888-294-8560. Or go online. This is really easy. Just go to WMAL.com/Fisher House. I did it. What did I do it, Corey, like half an hour ago? I said, how easy is the website to use this year? I went, WMAL.com/Fisher House. I made the donation in, I think, under 10 seconds flat. It was that quick. I just go right to the website. I used Apple Pay, and it was in like, it was that. It was done. I had a notification email like right away. So if you want to make a quick donation, if you don't have time to make a phone call, please, WMAL.com/Fisher House. God bless you for it. We got a busy show today, too. We got a lot of headlines to get to. We'll have Daniel Turner with us joining at 3:30. We'll talk about this ridiculous climate summit going on in Dubai and the fact that Muriel Bowser is wasting taxpayer dollars to be there. Julio Rosas is here at 4 o'clock today, and then we'll talk to Matthew Bradford. When Matthew Bradford is with the Fisher House, we'll talk to him at 4:15. Brent Bazell is here at 4:30. We have a lot of Fisher House guests coming up today. You can join us on the air at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Let me start with a news story, an update on an important news story that involves American troops. CBS reports today that Japan is continuing its search for 7 American service members who were aboard a U.S. Air Force Osprey and crashed into the sea just off of a tiny island called Yakushima. At least one person is dead. This is an American service member who died in that crash. The other 7 are missing. And you know how these things go. With every passing hour, it gets the hope of finding these service members becomes more and more dim. Japan says they are searching. Japanese Coast Guard vessels and helicopters are being aided in the search by craft from the Japan Self-Defense Forces. That's the nation's military. And they said several pieces of debris believed to be from the Osprey were recovered from the water on Wednesday, in addition to a large empty orange life raft. U.S. defense official confirming to CBS that one of the crew members had died. So that's what we know so far. Now, let me connect this for you, if I can, to the work of the Fisher House, because I think it's important that this be brought up. When a service member dies, as at least one has here, their bodies, when recovered, are brought back to the United States, as many of you know, to the Dover Air Force Base. And they're brought down onto the tarmac off of a plane in a flag-draped coffin in an unfortunate but just, how do I put this, just an important ceremony called the dignified transfer of remains. And when that coffin comes down, waiting to receive it, or of course members of the military, but importantly, most importantly, the members of the family are there to receive that coffin. Now, most of us, thanks be to God, will never have to do that. We'll never have to be in that situation. But there are Americans who are. And it is one of the most emotional possible things that you could ever imagine. That's what we're told. Normally, the silence is only broken by the sobs of the family members who are receiving those remains. So in this case, in this the service member who died in this Osprey crash, and maybe more, 7 are missing, they'll be brought back and they'll be met by their families in Dover. And the families, when they go to Dover, they often stay right near the tarmac at the Fisher House. The military does not provide this service. The Fisher House does. They have a relationship with the military where they have this Fisher House on the base, and they're able to take care of the families. Now, this is an extraordinary mission. Fisher House does take care of the sick and the wounded, the family members, the veterans, the combat vets. They do all of that. But in addition to all of that, they take care of the families at Dover. And I was just looking it up today. I was thinking about, first of all, there's, the history here of other crashes like this includes, of course, these service members coming back to Dover and the family members staying at the Fisher House. But I was curious about the 13 troops who were killed in Afghanistan, you remember, during Biden's disastrous withdrawal from that country. And the family members, of course, received the remains at Dover during an infamous moment as Biden was too distracted. He was checking his watch as the bodies were coming in. But I was able to find out via contemporaneous news reports at the time that the families did stay at the Fisher House. But not all of them could. There were so many family members who were affected by the deaths of these 13 troops that the Fisher House was overwhelmed. They couldn't take everybody. They couldn't handle it. And so many of the family members had to stay off base. They had to stay at hotels. And just so you know, the Fisher House, to the extent that they can, with the resources they have, they cover hotel stays for those people they can't put up at the Fisher House. They cover transportation. They cover food. They do everything they can to take care of these families. And so the Fisher House is just one of the most important and obvious places that you could possibly support. It's not, there's no politics involved in this. There's nothing like that. It's just taking care of the people who are willing to sacrifice for our country and their families who sacrifice so much as well. And so today, what we're asking here on WMAL, this is not, you're familiar with our radio station if you've listened for a while. We're not in the business of really spending a great deal of time on charitable causes and those sorts of things. Obviously, there are things we like and support. We'll bring on guests of all kinds. But we have a special place for Fisher House. It's the one time a year that we kind of change the nature of our programming a bit to share this great story because it is so worthwhile. And and these are angels. These people are angels who work with the Fisher House. And you're going to hear that today from some of these family members, some of these patients who have come into contact with the angels at the Fisher House. Again, the number today to help them is 888-294-8560. Just really straightforward, really easy, wonderful people on the line. 888-294-8560. You can go on the internet and do it. Really, I swear to you, it's the easiest thing ever. WMAL.com/Fisher House. It'll take you seconds. In fact, if you got a family member next to you, see if you can race. WMAL.com/Fisher House. You could race through this thing. Make a quick donation. It doesn't have to be thousands of dollars, although, boy, I got to say, we've got some members of the audience who are very generous every year, and God bless you for that. But you can go on there and say $20. Just, if nothing else, just $20 right there, quick donation to the Fisher House. And I will say that some years I don't know what to get someone for Christmas. We're in that time, right? Like it's full-on Christmas shopping season now. If you don't know what to get, make a donation to the Fisher House in their name and then give it to them. Especially the older we get, we don't need as much stuff, right? It's like Christmas gift time comes. I don't need stuff. I got enough stuff. Make a contribution to the Fisher House, do it in their name, and give it to them on Christmas and say, you took care of troops this year. That's your gift. It's a nice gesture. And it goes a long way. It goes a real long way. WMAL.com/Fisher House. All right. For more on this, we'll be joined coming up in just a few minutes here by so many great guests from the Fisher House, people who've been affected by the Fisher House. And that includes the parents of these veterans, the people that they lose, or the people that need medical services. And let me make one other point before we get to some of that, because we're trying to connect with some of these great people now. We are in one of the most perilous times of any of our lives right now, aren't we? In the United States of America. What do we talk about all the time here on the program? Just how crazy things are getting, how chippy so many of our international adversaries are getting, and the extent to which they are trying to take advantage of whether it's Biden's weakness or the chaos here in the United States. They're on the move. They're on the move. We see armed conflicts breaking out all around the planet. We see terrorists taking shots at American troops, plenty of American troops being injured by Iranian terror proxies. We get reports of that every day. We have some very active conflicts going on around the world, and unfortunately, you fear it could get a lot more active very soon, to the point where you have U.S. troops very involved in an international conflict. And when that happens, not only are people injured, but people die in those. People are maimed in those. Our troops. And if you think about it, if you were offered an opportunity, a time machine, go back in time, before Afghanistan or before Iraq or before the Gulf War, before the Vietnam War, but just pick your time. And you were told, hey, look, you can go back and you can be in a position to help these family members, to make sure they get the help that they need, these troops, to make sure that they get the help that they need. Would you take it? Would you help them out? And the answer, I think, for everybody is yeah. You do what you could, right? Given how much they've done for us. Well, now's that time. You hate to say it, but you have to say it. This is just a realistic perspective. Now is that time. We don't know what's coming next. All we know is that there's enough chaos going on that it does mean that American bodies are going to be on the line. They already are in so many ways. We already have people being injured. And all around the planet, there are military hospitals, there are veterans hospitals that have a Fisher House attached to them that take care of injured veterans and their family members. Let me just give you an update on where they are. The Fisher House Foundation, which handles all of this, they're on the road to 100 houses right now. They currently have 96 of these homes. And when I say homes, that's really what they are. They're individual suites for each person. It's like a hotel. It's like a very nice hotel suite. You get the bed, you get the bathroom, and then there's a communal kitchen inside of each of these homes, so that people, there's a central meeting area where families can come together. They can grieve together, they can work together, they can talk about the medical issues that their family member is experiencing, their unique status as veteran families, all of that. The Fisher House is built to cultivate relationships and to help healing. That's what they do. That's what they do. And importantly, right there in that center area, that kitchen, there's so much good that's done. There's people who bring food. There's people who cook it during the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving. They'll go out of their way to prepare meals for these families. And some of the homes are actually specialized to meet the needs of, for instance, patients with psychological afflictions, maybe PTSD or some other medical condition that requires a more sensitive environment. And they have drilled down all the way to the artwork on the walls. They'll bring in experts to help them figure out, how do we arrange this room? What does it look like? What do we do with this painting? There was one, we went to Walter Reed. We went to the Fisher House there. They have one of their homes is like this. And I forget the exact detail on the painting, but they had an expert walk through and they looked at the painting and they thought that the painting was like a painting of a house or something, and that it looked a little too cold and it needed a window on the house, or it needed a tree in the skyline. And so they added it. They actually changed the painting to make it more accommodating to the needs of the people who stay there. Literally the finest details are attended to at these Fisher houses. So all I'm asking is, if you are someone of tremendous means, God bless you for making a big contribution. That'd be the best. That would be the best. I know Chris Plant constantly asks, what is it, $1 million? Is that his ask? If you donate $1 million, he'll come and mow your lawn. I mean, that's a pretty expensive lawn mow. But you do get the added benefit of taking care of a lot of family members for a lot of nights at the Fisher House. Now, the funniest thing to me, I would laugh heartily, would be if I get the first $1 million contribution and then I make Chris Plant come and mow your lawn. That would be good. But in the meantime, if you can't give $1 million, 20 will do. Just give $20. WMAL.com/Fisher House. The number 888-294-8560. Yes, please do. This is the Fisher House Radiothon. Let's bring in the mother of a Marine veteran who was diagnosed with a brain disease as an adult, whose victims rarely survived childhood. Her son passed away at the age of 34. Our guest is Pat Sherrod Elliot. Pat, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Pat, if you could, tell us When did your son pass away, and if you could tell us the role the Fisher House played in your life?
Okay, well, my son, Sergeant Sean Joseph Victor, was a U.S. Marine, and he was diagnosed in May of 2019 with ALD. It's called adrenoleukodystrophy. And he spent 3 months in the Ralph H. Johnson VA Hospital in Charleston, South Carolina. And that was my first experience staying at the Fisher House in Charleston.
In 2019?
Yes.
And so you stayed at the Fisher House while he was getting treatment?
While they were trying to determine what his condition was.
Oh,
yes.
I see. And it must have been, I mean, it had to have been tough. Did you know did you know the Fisher House even existed prior to that?
Well, I knew of the Fisher House because they have the case manager at the hospital gave me the information, and they have flyers at the hospital for veterans to, so that's how I found out about it.
Okay.
Through the case manager at the Fisher House.
And they don't charge you a thing to stay there, do they?
Oh, no. Everything is free for family members when you stay at the Fisher House. They provide you with, it's basically a home away from home. You bring your bag, you get settled in, everything is furnished, the rooms are magnificent. I mean, everything you need is there. They have families that come in. They have groups that come in and cook for you while you're there, so you don't have to worry about anything to eat. They have laundry room. Everything is provided. You can do your laundry. The refrigerators are all stocked for you. So, yes, everything is provided free of charge. All you have to do is just focus on your family member and help them to get better.
And so were you able to see, how close are you from the Fisher House to your son, your Marine? How far was that?
It's actually only 1 mile from the VA hospital. The Fisher House in Charleston is located at 150 Wentworth Street.
Okay. And
that's only 1 mile from the Ralph H. Johnson VA hospital. But the Fisher House provides you with transportation, so you don't have to worry about that either.
That's important. Your son, how old was he when he was diagnosed? And then, as I said, he passed away at 34. How soon did that happen?
He was 32 when he was diagnosed, but we were told by the genetics specialist at Johns Hopkins that this condition, ALD, is normally diagnosed in children, and they pass away before they're 5 years old. So the fact that my son was able to live until he was 32, he did 8 years in the Marine Corps. He traveled all over the world, and he was never affected by the condition. So he was actually a miracle.
He sounds like it. Well, God bless you, and thank you for telling people about the role the Fisher House played for you. I know you stayed at Charleston and Bethesda. Is that right?
Yes. Once the VA determined that my son had the ALD, we wanted to find out exactly what it was. So I took him to Walter Reed in Bethesda, Maryland, and that was the second time that I stayed at the Fisher House. There's one on the campus of Walter Reed.
Yeah, there is. Again, Pat Sherrod Elliot, God bless you. Thank you so much for telling us about your experience with the Fisher House, and thank you for the life that your wonderful son led serving our country. God bless you.
Thank you.
The number to support the Fisher House today, 888-294-8560, 888-294-8560, or go online to WMAL.com/Fisher House. Updates ahead on this Fisher House Radiothon. Continues right here on WMAL. The number 888-294-8560, 888-294-8560, or a very easy, quick donation right there online, WMAL.com/Fisher House. Want to extend some gratitude to Scott in Alexandria, who just made a $1,000 contribution to our troops and their family members. And also Jacques Desmoulins, I hope I said that correctly. He just gave $2,000 to support the troops. He notes he's with Commandery number 4. Jacques Desmoulins making that big contribution today. Thank you, Jacques. That's going to go a long way. It's going to result in a lot of nights for these families to be kept warm, to be kept at no expense to them in these homes alongside these various military medical centers on these military bases all around the planet. Thank you, Jacques. The grand total at this hour $193,120 so far raised just today by WMAL listeners. Thank you for that. It is a very big deal. It is a very big deal. It means a lot. And I was talking to the Fisher House folks. They said there's nothing like WMAL on the whole planet. Out of all the things that all the organizations they work with, a lot of people support the Fisher House out there because they just have such a great reputation. They do such great work. You can't debate that. They said there's nothing like WMAL at all. And so they mark the calendar for the WMAL Fisher House Radiothon. So thank you for the role that you play in that. Again, WMAL.com/Fisher House. Meanwhile, in the news today, we've got the ongoing climate conference, and it is warning us that the planet has never been hotter simultaneously. They're over in Dubai. I think it gets hot in Dubai. They say the planet's never been hotter, and simultaneously, the experts there have been saying, well, we might not have as much global warming as we thought. Well, that's an interesting turnabout. I don't even trust anything they're saying. So now I'm wondering why they're doing that. Why are they telling us that things are not warming as fast as they once told us? Let's bring in Daniel Turner. He follows this closely. He's the founder and executive director of Power the Future, and he joins us on the phone. Hello, Daniel.
Ben, it's always great to be on with you. Thank you.
What is going on with this climate conference, and why are so many powerful people there?
All I know is that I was not invited. I would love to see if maybe we can all try to go to COP29. They'll announce the location for COP29 at the end of COP28, and I am pretty sure it's not going to be in Darfur or the Congo, right? It will probably be in some glorious city like Dubai. But yeah, 40,000 folks are expected to be there. Last year at COP28, which was in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, another beautiful resort on the Red Sea,
of course,
where Moses crossed. Last year, I think it was over 1,500 American officials, all taxpayer funded, all went.
It's
and
crazy.
They all stayed. Absolutely. Remember, these are the same people who made your kids go to class for weeks and months and years on Zoom because of a crisis. And now they're saying we have a fossil fuel-driven crisis, but none of them jumped on Zoom, right? None of them were getting on Skype. They all jumped on Emirates and flew to Dubai for a couple of weeks.
Yes, or private planes for that matter. And so they're there staying in luxury, and they're burning all that fuel on the way there, which really gives away the game, doesn't it? I mean, it'd be like holding a conference dedicated to stopping gun violence, but the cost of entry is you have to shoot somebody in the head before you go in, right? It's like, what? It doesn't even make any sense. So you're burning endless amounts of fuel to go to your climate conference?
And if you look at the agenda, you realize it is just one enormous cultural Marxist love-a-thon, right? The very first event at the conference was put on by a group of feminists for climate action, and it was all about climate change and gender. And you say, if you are going to hold an event for feminists, the Middle East is where you should have it.
Wait, how can the feminists?
Logical.
Yeah, but exactly. Of course, the feminists in the Middle East for climate. I mean, wait a second. How can we trust the feminists? Don't they burn bras? Like, how can we trust them on the climate issue?
Now, I did notice on the agenda there is no LGBTQ event, but there is, some rooftop party later on tonight that they're invited to. So again, the Middle East, not exactly a place for the LGBTQ community, but, if you wanted to have some event, I'm sure they would gladly, take care of you in another way. It's just absolute absurd, the cultural Marxism under the guise of climate, under the guise of protecting the earth, and all paid for by taxpayers, all paid for by you and me. We're just not invited.
Okay, so give me Dubai. Their whole deal is oil. That's how they make their money.
Quite a bit.
So they're hosting a conference. Let me just see if I can do the math on this. They're hosting a conference that says the rest of the world should not dig up their oil. You shouldn't touch oil anywhere. And yet Dubai, that's their number one resource. Is this a scam? Is Dubai trying to make it so that everybody else can't do what they're doing every day that's enriching them?
100%. As a Yankees fan, if the Red Sox wanted to have a conference, I would let them buy my stadium, right? So Dubai, it makes perfect sense that they're going to invite 40,000 of their quote unquote enemies to stay in their hotels, to use their restaurants. They're going to make a fortune from this conference. But when you think about it, if the rest of the world stops producing oil, the rest of the world, of course, being America, who's going to benefit from that? I mean, as the conference is kicking off today, OPEC announced that they're going to continue their oil production cuts. OPEC has no desire to lower prices. Oil immediately moved about $2 higher a barrel in that announcement. Why? Because it's great for OPEC. It's great for Dubai. It's great for their industry. It's just bad for the rest of us.
Wait, so you're saying
about the rest of us.
So you're saying OPEC. So this is a real-time example. So if OPEC announces that they're going to bring up less oil, that immediately has an impact on prices. So you're telling me,
absolutely. So
you're telling me that if let's say we had an American president who said we're going to open up the floodgates, that it would have an immediate impact on prices?
100%, and that's just now that may change within a day or so, but absolutely, that is the market saying that in the future there is going to be less oil or more oil, and the prices change. Now that's going to take a couple of weeks to trickle down to your price at the pump, right? The gas you're paying now at the pump is reflected from about 6 weeks ago, but it will get there. And proof of that, again, is Donald Trump was elected in 2016, sworn in January of 2017. It was the end of 2018 that we suddenly were like, gas is $2.15 a gallon. What is happening? It did take almost 2 years. So that means we can get back to that, but you got to start now. It's not going to happen immediately, but it will happen.
What's the expression for that? There's an expression for the way that gas prices change. Is it like rocket and feather or something? There's like the second prices start going up, gas prices go up very quickly. So and then when they come down, these independent owners of these gas stations all across the country, they'll more gingerly bring the price down because they're not sure it's going to stay that way.
Absolutely. And that's how this market works. And so when they say the president doesn't control prices, that's true. You know, Obama didn't, Trump did it, Biden didn't. But this is an industry that requires government cooperation. And when the government sets decisions and when the government sets policy, well, that is felt in market prices, as it is with everything, as it is with beef prices and any commodity prices affected by government decision.
Right.
All we want is a government that just allows us to do our job, right? It's just a government to allow us to do what we do best, which is produce oil. It's amazing. You have this conference happening telling us we don't need oil, but boy, they needed a lot of oil to put on the conference.
Totally.
And then here's OPEC saying, we're going to keep production cuts in place, and prices go through the roof and continue to climb. So it's remarkable to watch happen in real time while the John Kerrys and the King Charles are all drinking champagne and eating little canapes and loving their. I think the most exclusive hotel in the world is in Dubai, that one that's shaped like a sailboat. I bet you John Kerry has a nice suite there.
I'm sure he does. I'll never see that place, unfortunately. But Muriel Bowser is seeing it. She's the D.C. mayor. She's having a grand old time on your dime. Hey, thanks so much, Daniel Turner. Good to talk to you today.
Thanks, Vince.
As always, that's Daniel Turner with Power of the Future. Now, let me turn my attention back to the Fisher House Radiothon we've got going on here on WMAL. It's today and it's tomorrow. We're going to be sharing all of these great stories with you on what you have accomplished. Let me just reiterate this. For over 2 decades, it's been WMAL's audience that has provided over $8 million in support for the Fisher House. So when we tell you these stories, these are the fruits of the efforts that so many WMAL listeners have undertaken. This is in some ways, this is a report card on, hey, just to get back to you on the contributions you've made in years past. Here's what's happening. Here's how that money's been used. And so let me bring in a guest now who can help a little bit more on give you a sense of what the Fisher House is and how your support has been so essential. Joining us now is Col Patrick Miller. Sir, good to have you with us on the phone.
Vince, how you doing? Great to be here.
I'm glad to have you here, Colonel. Colonel, give people a quick sense of your bio. You received a medal for saving other people's lives during a shooting at Fort Hood, and you were shot yourself. Tell us.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, you think, Fort Hood, Fort Cavazos, shooting a lot of people, go back to 2009 when,
right.
Major Hassan murdered 13 people and shot 30 others. Well, there's a second Fort Hood shooting about 4.5 years later, lesser known, not as heralded, where another soldier killed 4 people, including himself, and shot 16 others that day on April 2nd, 2014. And you know, I got shot that day, and you know, made it miraculously. You know, that was going on 10 years now. It'll be 10-year anniversary this April, and
Wow.
you know, I've continued to serve and continue to, you know, grow a young family, and forever indebted to so many people and so many organizations, and in this case specifically, the Fisher House, for everything that they did for my family while I was laid up in the ICU for 2 weeks, specifically, you know, recovering after the shooting.
Yeah, so you get shot in this incident, and I can sense your humility on this because you're not really giving us the details of how you saved everybody's lives, but I appreciate that. I tell you, and so you end up getting treated medically, but your parents were able to stay at the Fisher House.
They were. It was incredible. I was familiar with the Fisher House and their mission, and again, it was 2014, right? So it was 10 years ago. Prior to that, but you know, obviously never had been deployed and had a lot of close calls, but was never really wounded overseas in Iraq or anything. So yeah, when I was out of it, I was in the ICU, had 3 major surgeries, you know, about with pneumonia, multiple infections. Like I was laid up, like I said. My parents flew down to Texas from upstate New York. My in-laws flew in from New York, Florida, relatives, friends. And yeah, the Fisher House, they put my parents up, gave them all the resources they needed. I was just blown away by the care that they received and their reaction to the care they received. Like till this day, my father speaks glowingly about his experience, you know, given that tragedy and given how tense, you know, the situation was for everybody, obviously. But yeah.
And it's a lot. It's a lot for. Are either of your parents military veterans?
No, neither of them escaped the generation. Both grandparents served, but neither of my parents.
So the reason I ask is because I think for a lot of people who don't have experience just kind of on a base or in a military environment, it's just gonna be so overwhelming. You know, it's like there's just a lot. It's a different world. But to have people like at the Fisher House who can help navigate all of that, getting you through gates and getting you to the place and putting you up in the room and taking care of all of that. That must have been just a tremendous weight off of the shoulder of your parents and brought you some comfort that somebody was taking care of them.
Oh, 100%. And it sounds, you know, relatively easy. It briefs well, right? But logistically, it can be a nightmare for somebody not familiar with, you know, a military base or installation, trying to find their way around or get the resources they need. And, you know, like you said, getting through the gate. So especially during that time after that shooting, after you know, an active shooting incident on a military installation. It was a big deal, you know, nationally, and it was a big deal locally. So it was pretty intense.
It's unbelievable. Lastly, Colonel, and thank you for doing this today. I really appreciate this. So you went back to active duty after you were able to recover, and your family stayed at the Fisher House to support you during that recovery. How did the Fisher House ever come up in the future for some of the soldiers who worked under you? I'm sure that some of them may have needed the support of the hospital and the Fisher House.
Yeah, I found myself doing some education, you know, offline and also on duty. Just folks that aren't familiar with it, or it comes up, or you know, the benefit concert that I put on every summer back home in Buffalo is my way of giving back to organizations like the Fisher House, where, you know, the Fisher House is a benefactor for all the proceeds that we raised there. And you know what I mean? Like, that's the least I could do. You know, I'm lucky to be alive. I don't take a day for granted. And, you know, I've been serving for 20 years now, and I absolutely love the Army, and I love to serve. And you know, the Fisher House helped make that possible for my family to continue to do that.
Well, God bless you for telling this story, and thank you for your service. And it's just so nice to have you with us. Col Patrick Miller, thank you very much for, you know, just serving your country and for helping to take care of the Fisher House today, sir.
Hey, Vince, thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you and everybody else out there.
Merry Christmas, sir. The number is 888-294-8560, 888-294-8560. The website, WMAL.com/Fisher House. It'll take you literally seconds. Race a family member right now and see who can get the contribution in first. And see if you can do what Harry just did. He just donated $1,000 from Sykesville, Maryland. Harry, thank you so much for that. Thank you for supporting the Fisher House and people like Colonel Miller. You know, one of the other things that happens normally during these radiothons with the Fisher House is that members of the military who already are serving their country, God bless you for that, will make donations and then challenge the other services to meet the number. So we'll get like, you know, an airman will donate $1,000 and say, try to beat that Navy, and it starts a good little trend. So if anybody wants to contribute that way, by all means, leave a message as you make the number, and we can share it on air. 888-294-8560, or go online to WMAL.com/Fisher House. There's a little comment entry there. You can even add some information about your contribution. Right now, the WMAL audience this year, today alone, has contributed $200,150. Every time I read these numbers, I almost want to choke up with gratitude for what you're doing for our great military veterans and their families. God bless you for it. The Fisher House Radiothon continues. We'll be joined as well coming up by Julio Rosas. We'll get an update on some of the chaos the left is bringing to America's cities.